Hello, and welcome to LALS 55, AIDS Across the Americas in the Winter 2024 quarter. I'm Professor Perez. I'm the instructor of this course. I'm an assistant professor in Latin American and Latino Studies here at UCSC, and this quarter will be assisted by Zoe Alamillo, who will be our teaching assistant. Right off the bat, I just want to share that our office hours are the best way to check in on your learning, to communicate with the instructional team, and to overall improve your engagement with the class. So I encourage you to swing by either my or Zoe's office hours this quarter. I'll be holding office hours on Mondays from 2 to 4 p.m. in Merrill 36, my office, and Zoe will be holding office hours on Tuesdays from 3:15 to 5:15 p.m. in Merrill 32. I'm going to go over the syllabus try kind of as quickly as possible. So this is not necessarily a substitution for your close and careful review of the syllabus. I really encourage you to make sure you download it, spend some time reading it, and do let us know if you have any questions. At any rate, I'll be going through each of the constitutive sections and important elements of the syllabus so that we have a clear sense of what the path forward is going to look like as we continue on in this quarter. I'm not going to read the entire course description, but I encourage you to do so. I also encourage you to go back to it at the end of the quarter and see how and what moments of the class we really did what we talked about at the beginning. And you'll see all that you've learned over the course of the 10 weeks that we'll have together. But really what I want to home in on, at least at this point in the course description, is two things. One, the question of scale, and two, the question of cultural and interpretive analysis. So the first thing is that this course is titled AIDS Across the Americas. This is essentially because we are approaching the study of the HIV/AIDS epidemic within the limits of a 10-week quarter and within the geographical boundaries of the hemisphere. A more comprehensive global approach to HIV/AIDS would, of course, pay particular attention to geographic regions outside of the Americas, but that's not what we're intending to do here. This is a Latin American and Latino studies course, and a lot of our approach is to compare and bridge Latino studies, Latin American studies, the experiences of a cultural phenomenon or historical moment in the North America, as well as in South and Central America and the Caribbean. And that's what we'll be doing with our approach to the history of HIV/AIDS and HIV/AIDS art and activism. So that's the first thing to get to have in mind as we continue on with the course. The second thing is that this is really a course about the cultural and interpretive analysis of HIV/AIDS. So we're going to be focusing a lot on art, on activism, on the experiences of everyday people as they experience the HIV/AIDS epidemic, both in the US and in Latin America. And we're going to be using a lot of cultural and social theories to approach and understand and approximate what this experience has looked like. We have one required text. It's available to download completely for free as an ebook through the library. And it's also available on online retailers or through the bookstore. It is by the anthropologist Karina Heckert, and it's called Fault Lines of Care, Gender, HIV, and Global Health in Bolivia. And it's going to be looking at the experiences of women living with HIV/AIDS in Bolivia. There's a lot of ways to access the hard copy, and if you like to read from the hard copy, I really encourage you to get it. You can try online retailers like Amazon.com. You can actually go to the website of the press that published this book, Rutgers University Press. That's another way. Or if you prefer to read a digital version, there's also, again, the entire book is available as an ebook through the library. And then finally, on this first page, the important thing to hit home is also just what to kind of expect in terms of coursework and how the quarter is going to look as we proceed. So again, this is a 5 credit course, which means that that should correspond to about 150 hours of work over the quarter, which is about 15 hours a week. So the estimated breakdown is that we'll have about, you can expect per week about 3.25 hours of lecture. So that's coming to class on the designated days on Monday and Wednesday. Um, expect about 7 hours of reading and about 4.75 hours of homework. Again, reading that 7 hours, it doesn't mean that reading the articles assigned or the readings assigned will take you 7 hours. What that 7 hours also entails is maybe reading it twice if there's something that was challenging or hard, or taking notes on the reading, or going over and reviewing what you highlighted and underlined. So that 7 hours isn't necessarily just that one pass for the assigned reading. It's everything else that we do to make sure that we're comprehending and understanding what we're reading in terms of the assigned readings. And of course, that will all be reinforced through lecture and through your homework. I'll encourage you as well to take a look at the learning outcomes. So this first half of bullets are basically what I hope that you'll learn, or what students will be able to do if they successfully and effectively go through all of the course requirements. So I'm going to read those right now. They might not make full sense right now before you've done the class, but at the end of the quarter, if you go back and look, you'll see that if you did all of the readings, if you completed the homework successfully, if you effectively studied for our final exam, that you'll be able to do all 4 of these things. So the first is that I want students to be able to develop a working fluency of the basic terminology of HIV/AIDS prevention, treatment, and care, and an understanding of the international global health and human rights institutions that are principally addressing the HIV/AIDS epidemic today in 2024. I want students to be able to give examples of person-centered stories. So that is stories based on people's everyday actual experiences of living with HIV/AIDS that attend to gender, sexuality, and race. The book that we're reading, Karina Heckert's Fault Line of Care, is going to be a really important source for meeting this particular objective. And I want students to be able to describe how these experiences have varied across cultures and over the past 4 decades throughout the Americas. So I want you to be able to see how the experience might look differently in Bolivia, in Brazil, in Peru, compared to the experience of the United States that we'll also be talking and thinking through over the course of the quarter. Students will be able to compare the political, economic, and historical conditions that influence a country's response to AIDS. So you'll see how, for example, Brazil's response to AIDS was elaborated, the reasons why Brazil was able to mount such an effective response to the epidemic in comparison to other countries and their situations like Bolivia or Peru. And finally, students will be able to assess and interpret historic, contemporary, and future representations of AIDS through concepts informed by cultural and social theories and grounded in human rights and social justice. The big assignment that we're going to have that's going to be oriented towards this particular goal is our visual analysis, which I'll get to as we proceed with the syllabus overview. These are for the Latin American Latino Studies program. So if you're an LALS major or minor, the course will also be hitting on and addressing these outcomes that are part of being that major or minor. So now I'm going to go through the course requirements and grading. I'm not going to try and read off of all of these descriptions. So I encourage you to go back and make sure that you're viewing each one so you know exactly what you need to submit, what the deliverables are for the course as we can continue through the quarter. The first thing is a syllabus quiz. So I want you to finish that by the end of week 1. And it's just a short, untimed quiz on Canvas about the syllabus. I encourage you to consult the syllabus while you complete the quiz because it's going to ask you maybe, or you might want to go back and double check some really specific things about the midterm, about office hours, etc. It's really just designed to make sure that you closely go through the syllabus during this first week of the quarter. The next main assignment are what I'm calling reading checks, and these are going to happen most weeks of the class. So basically, the idea is that each week you'll have a set of assigned readings, we'll have lecture, and you will, on your own time, on Canvas, go and complete these short assignments, ideally by Wednesday each week, but the deadline is by Friday. So they're short, they're going to be like true, false, short answer, multiple choice kind of questions. You're welcome to consult the readings, you're welcome to consult your lecture notes. And each week, you have until Friday to do it. The reason why the deadline is Friday is that so by the weekend, once every student has finished the reading check, I'll be able to open up the answers so students can see what they got right and what they got wrong. But I'm not going to do that since everyone can take it on their own time until after Friday. So that's why Friday is the deadline. If you don't do it by Friday, then you just have to move on and you miss that week. So again, remember you have the whole week to do it. You should be able to do it by Wednesday each week, but you basically have until Friday to do so. It's important to engage in this assignment again over the course of the quarter. It's 40% of your grade because each week is basically 5 points. But also the kinds of questions that are appearing on the reading checks are going to be the questions that might also appear in the midterm and the final. So it's also just a great way to stay on top of the course, to not fall behind, and to always be preparing for the midterm and the final assessments. So again, the reading checks are on week 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and they're to be completed on Canvas by Friday, 11:59 p.m. Although, again, I encourage you to really do that by Wednesday, so that way you'll be prepared and know what's going on in lecture and in class. The reading checks are going to be your main week by week assignment. Again, they're each low stakes, but they all are oriented towards the midterm and the final. So the midterm is broken into 2 parts. The first part is going to be a short, a brief essay. That's going to be a visual analysis of a photograph, an image, a poster, or some other artwork from our course's visual archive. So basically, over the course of the quarter, I'm going to be giving lectures, and in those lectures, I'm also going to be including some visual elements and components like posters, like art, like photographs. And basically, in that first half of the quarter, you'll select one that really resonates with you, that you found really interesting, that you think fits in really well with some of the ideas that we've been reading about and talking about in lecture, and you'll write a brief essay on it. So that's going to be the first half of the midterm, that short essay, and you'll submit it by the start of class Wednesday, February 7th. Because then on that day, Wednesday, February 7th, during the designated class period, you'll complete over Canvas remotely your midterm exam. And that is basically going to be 15 multiple choice questions related to the lectures and readings of the first half of the quarter. So you'll submit the essay on Canvas before the start of the midterm exam, and then you'll take the midterm exam. You'll have a couple of weeks or a week to get your essay ready. So it's not like a timed essay, but you submit it before the midterm, and then on Wednesday, February 7th, you'll take the midterm exam. It is open book. It is open note, so you can consult your notes, you can consult your reading. This is why I encourage you to keep up with the readings, to take notes on the readings. to keep up with lecture, because all of that you can use as you take the midterm. You'll take it on Canvas remotely, so in the place that it makes most sense for you, whether that's a library, a computer lab, your home, um, during the scheduled class period. So that's going to be the midterm. After the midterm, we'll continue to have some reading checks, but then the next main assignment is basically your final. And the final's also going to be set up in the same way as the midterm. However, for the final, before the start of final, you're actually going to revise and extend the briefer essay that you submitted for the midterm. So I want you to continue to sit with this artwork or this photograph or this poster over the course of the quarter as we continue to learn new concepts, as we continue to get some more readings, and you're going to revise and extend that essay and write an even more definitive, argumentative, persuasive essay analysis of that image and how it connects to the history of HIV/AIDS, art, and activism. In that second half of the quarter, I really encourage everyone to come to office hours with the teaching assistant, Zoe, or with me to continue to think through how you can improve, strengthen, and think just in different ways about what you wrote for the midterm. I'm really excited to see what you all come up with. And I think you all, or students, typically surprise themselves with what kind of new ideas they can generate when they sit with one piece of art, or one photograph or one poster over an extended period of time. You really come up with some interesting and insightful things that you might not have thought otherwise. There's a lot of directions you can take that revision to. You can also you can compare two pieces, or you can start all over and select a new item. So that's all going to be up to you. We'll talk more about that as the quarter goes. Like the midterm, basically that extended essay is going to be due before the start of our final, and then you'll take the final exam during the registrar's designated final exam time slot for our course. So that's actually Monday, March 18th, and the exam will be from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Again, the exam portion, it's cumulative, but it's also open book and open note, and you'll get a study guide during week 10 to help you organize all of the readings, all of your notes, and everything that you've learned over the course of the quarter. So that way it's easy to consult everything that you have put together. Again, the reading checks are all building up to these questions. We might use some of the same questions, or at least ask about a lot of the same ideas over the course of the reading checks, and those will appear again in the midterm and final. So this is the course grade breakdown, pretty straightforward. Your syllabus quiz, and then the 8 weekly reading checks. So it's 8 because you don't have reading checks in midterms week. And in the first week of the quarter, each of those are 5 points, so that's 40 points. The midterm is 25, so that's going to be 10 points for the essay and 15 points of the remote Canvas exam. And then the final is 30 points. And again, that's going to be 10 points for your revised essay. So we're going to grade it a little bit harder because you'll have had more time to work on it, on thinking through your ideas, and we expect a bit of a more polished, put together, refined essay. And then the 20 points for the final. So pretty straightforward. That all adds up to 100. And there's the grading scale. The other thing I just want you to be aware of is that Canvas, the gradebook on Canvas isn't always a reliable indicator of your current grade. Basically, all you need to do is just add up how many points you've earned based on the reading checks you've submitted up to that point, or how you did on the midterm, etc. and then divide that by the total number of points that have been assigned in the class. And so that's how you'll get to it. So it might look, maybe if you don't do really well on the first or second reading checks, that you're not doing well in the class. But I assure you that if you continue to work on your reading checks, you continue to move forward with the class, that will like look better because it's just proportionally there's been less points assigned at the beginning of the quarter. Here's just, I put in some artwork in the open space of the syllabus. We'll be going through, these are just some examples of some of the pieces that we'll be thinking about as we proceed throughout the quarter. Some of you might end up even writing your papers on these posters or these pieces. So again, I want to go over communication policies and how to get feedback and how to give feedback. Um, we are a big class and not a very large instructional team, so it's just really important to for things to move effectively if we follow these communication guidelines. So first is office hours. I really encourage you to attend office hours, especially if you needing help with course materials. Zoe's absolutely phenomenal. So I encourage you to go to Zoe's office hours as well as mine. Again, mine are going to be Mondays from 2 to 4, and Zoe's are Tuesdays 3:15 to 5:15. It's best to go to Zoe first when you need help with teaching with the course materials. So if you're having problems engaging readings or lecture, if you have a question about grading, if you need some technical troubleshooting on Canvas, Zoe's your first point of contact. For questions regarding course policy, if for questions regarding DRC related academic accommodations, or if you have even more questions about the course materials, then you can come to my office hours. Again, for both Zoe and I, our office hours are in person and in a drop-in basis. Okay, so in addition to office hours, obviously written communications are a great way to get in contact with the instructional team. For me, the most effective way to get in contact with me is through the message function on Canvas. I'm just more effective working with that than with email when it comes to course-related inquiries. So you can expect a response in at least, ideally, 24 hours from me if you send the message on Canvas. Sometimes if it comes on the weekend or on Fridays, expect a longer response, of course. I do expect professional communication even on Canvas. So this is just, I think, an important good practice to write Dear Professor Perez or Hello Professor Perez. So putting in a conventional salutation and then, concluding with a conventional valediction like sincerely or thank you or cordially or whatever you like to use. The other thing that I encourage you to do, at least to help me respond more effectively to your inquiries, is just to put in the subject line of the message 55 or LALS 55. So I teach multiple classes, and sometimes we have the same names of the assignments, or I don't know exactly which class you're talking about, and maybe there's different deadlines or different policies even. And so putting that like on the subject header immediately makes me see, oh, the students in 55, they're asking about something from LALS 55, and that helps me respond more effectively and quickly than without putting that. Because again, I also want to make sure that I'm talking about the right class, because especially this quarter, I teach multiple classes. And some students are in both classes, so that's also helpful to help me know which class you are talking about. For Zoe, Zoe prefers communication over email. Also expect a response at least 24 hours during the week, longer on the weekend, and please maintain the same standards of professional communication with Zoe as you would with me. So feedback. You will be getting feedback on your work. It is the reading checks. Those, again, they come out after every student has completed their reading check and after the Friday deadline. And that's where you'll see the right and wrong answers for the reading check. And then we'll be assessing your essays via a rubric on Canvas. So that's the best way to see how you did in the different categories of assessment for the written portions of the midterm and final. We'll go over the rubric, or you'll have access to the rubric on Canvas before you submit the paper. And we encourage you, especially in that time between the midterm and the final, to come to office hours, to think through some of that feedback, and to consider some new avenues and new ways to improve what you did in the midterm for that final paper. I'm not going to go over all of the course policies because it's quite long. Many of these statements have been adapted from the recommendations of the UCSC Teaching and Learning Center. I do want to quickly just touch base that of a content advisory. So we're going to be talking about sexuality. We're going to be talking about violence, hardship, suffering, death. We're going to see images of depicting representations of sexuality, of suffering, of illness, of death. So just generally be prepared for that kind of content in the readings and in lecture and in the films that we view. I'll do my best to provide some individual warnings for content. Um, and I encourage you to do what you need to do to effectively engage all of this required content. Because I'm assigning anything I assign, it's because it's important for this class, for helping us understand the experience of living with HIV/AIDS in the US and across the Americas. But if you need to take a break from a reading, for example, do it. If you need to take a break from lecture, either for a short time or for the rest of the class, please feel free to do so and without academic penalty. If you do leave lecture for a significant time or for the class period, then I do encourage you to get in contact with another student and make sure you get some of the notes from class. Principles of community, academic integrity. Again, maybe probably the biggest point that's important for academic integrity, at least in relationship to the assignments for this class, is that the reading checks, the midterm, and the final, I do expect you all to complete them individually. So while they're open book and open note, while you might say collaborate with a student to write notes about a reading or to better understand a reading, I do expect you to complete those assessments on Canvas individually and without consulting another student, either virtually or at the same time. For the midterm and the final, the questions are going to be randomized. And you'll respond to one question at a time, and you can't go back. And that's simply a measure to ensure fairness equity across all students. So just be prepared for that, for that midterm and the final. Again, look closely at the academic integrity policies. My other policy is that I'm prohibiting using generative AI like ChatGPT to complete course assignments, particularly your midterm and your final essay. I can talk more about that policy if you're interested in it, but the short of it is basically I think that it's really important for students to be able to stay ahead of the best that AI can pump out, because that's going to be the realities of your careers, where you're going to be having to be better than what AI can do so that you won't be automated out of a career. So this is just now more than ever is a good time to make sure you can think more originally, you can think in a more sharper way, you can articulate your ideas in a more convincing and compelling and authentic way than AI can. And that's what I want to hear and read. Okay, again, just all of the policies. deadlines are final. There may be an extra credit opportunity at the end of the quarter, especially if you do really well on your midterm. Um, Student resources on campus. So do get in touch with me if you have questions about your accommodations in the class. Um, the exams, of course, are going to be, they're taken remote. So you're still responsible. All students are responsible for identifying where they're going to take the exam. However, if you have time accommodations, and you're eligible for time accommodations, do get in touch with me so we can factor that into Canvas for you specifically. Here's the time of for the midterm and the final if you're eligible for a 1.5 time or 2 time accommodation. And finally, my primary mode of lecture is that I actually take notes on the Notability app on iPad. So as I'm talking and as I'm explaining what it is that we're talking about, I'm also writing them down on my pad and projecting that onto the screen. Then at the end of the week, I save all of those notes that I had taken during class. I also expect students to take notes too, as well. And those will basically be uploaded to Canvas by the end of the week. I typically don't use slides as much. So this page is a good page just to quickly check in on what week it is, what you need to read over the week, and what you have to do by the end of the week, or or by whatever specified day. So the week, the readings, and the deliverables, you'll see the last names of the authors for the specified readings, and then what you have to do by the end of the week, whether it's the syllabus quiz or the reading check. Again, week 5, that's our midterm week. So before the start of class on Wednesday, you have to submit your brief essay. And then the exam is during our scheduled class period on Wednesday. But again, you take that remotely on Canvas. Same week 6 through 10, you have designated readings, reading check by the end of the week, ideally by Wednesday. Again, I think getting through the readings, at least by Wednesday, will help you better understand what's going on in lecture. And then finals week, our designated slot, again, it's Monday, March 18th, 7:30 p.m. So you'll submit your extended essay by that date, and then sit for the exam from 7:30 to 9 p.m., again, remotely on Canvas. And then the syllabus basically concludes with a weekly course schedule. This like weekly way of setting it up will be reproduced on Canvas. So you'll see which the readings will be up, the reading checks will be up, week by week on Canvas. But this is just a good way to pay attention. One thing to keep in mind is that we do have Monday holidays this quarter, and our class is Monday, Wednesday. So you do want to make sure that even though we're not having class, you still have reading to do. I still want us to be able to get in all of the content that we normally would, should it be a different quarter. So, for instance, week 2, Monday is a holiday, but I do want you to look at these 2 readings by Wednesday. So the goal really is to do one reading by Monday, the next reading by Wednesday, and they're designated, and that's to help you better understand what's going to be going on in lecture. And that will lead us through up to the end of the quarter. So I'm looking forward to teaching this class, to getting to know you all, and do not hesitate to get in touch with Zoe, our teaching assistant, or with me for questions going forward.